Yo, what's up, everybody? Boca Nation, your boy Brandon Cole back at you, and we're gonna get right into this video. We're not gonna waste no time. You already know what it's about. You already saw the thumbnail. You already saw the caption. Basically, I had the pleasure of getting with a company called Camskins and ordering some nice skins for all my Sony cameras, man. Well, 3 of them. And I absolutely love it. I mean, just the way it looks, man. I mean, it really sticks out. And I just absolutely love it. So this is my A7R4. I had the pleasure of doing this and I just love the look of it. I mean, it's unique and I absolutely love it. But there was some things when I first started it and I said, man, you know, I saw some videos on YouTube, but if for some reason, people just don't give enough detail, like I need you to dumb it down. Like I'm crazy. So when I got everything and looked at how to do it, my mind just went crazy. And I know a lot of people out there right now, you getting these skins for your cameras, you look at everything, you look at the diagrams, and I know it's really hard to understand. So I'm gonna show you how I did my A7R4, and maybe you can use the same technique in order to do your own cameras, your Sony cameras, any other cameras, even the Canon cameras, because I feel like the way that I did mine is a pretty standard way that I think will help you to do it. I'm gonna go in detail for everything. Now I'm gonna tell you right now, you might as well get your coffee. You might as well get everything, because this is probably gonna be a very long video. I'm not gonna rush through things because this is something that I felt that I needed when I actually did my scan, and I wish it was out there. So I'm gonna take my A7S III, my main video camera, and I'm going to turn this into this. All right, again, this is not sponsored by Camskins. I paid my own money for these skins. They did not tell me what to say or do. They are not sponsoring me, so just so we are clear. So all this is done on my own thing, but I wanted to make sure that I came on YouTube and showed you guys how I did it, so you may not make the same mistakes. All right, so we're gonna dumb it down. We're gonna take our time, and I'm gonna show you how to do this from start to finish. Y'all ready? If you don't wanna sit through the video, whatever, this is not for you. Grab your coffee. We're gonna go through it from the jump, and I'm gonna show you where I started at, how to put this skin on, and how to get this fine looking, unique camera skin on your camera. All right, everybody ready? Grab your coffee, let's get it. So guys, we made it over to the desk. Now this is where we're going to take care of everything. So currently right now I have, when they send you this stuff in the mail, they send you your vinyl stickers. Now this is for the A7S III. It comes in 2 pieces of vinyl, all right? So the first thing, we're gonna get right into this. So the first thing, it also comes with this document, this piece of paper. It basically tells you about the applications, tell you about some things that you need, and then they give you this Q code. This Q code, you want to scan this with your phone. All right, now I'm also doing this on my my YOLO Live YOLO Box Pro also, so I can record all 3 of these views together. So give me some time as I try to do all these things together. All right, so first thing we're going to do is go over to the screen, and I'm going to show you what it looks like when you scan this Q code. The first thing you want to do, all right, when you actually scan the Q code, you're going to come up to this screen. It's going to be your installation instructions. So what you do is you scroll down until you find the device that you're looking for. Now in this example, we're going to be using the A7S III. So we're going to go down to the A7S III. There it is. And then we're going to go ahead and hit the instructions. All right, so it's going to come up with this manual, and I'm going to turn this long way so we can look at this. Now, one of the biggest pet peeves that when I was really doing this, and the first time I looked at this, it was really confusing, because I don't know if you can actually really see this, but the diagram doesn't fit what's actually on here. So you see like the top part, it has like some things on here, but they're not all in the same order. That was the biggest problem. The pieces are on here, but they're not in the same order as it is on the diagram. So you kind of have to look for the pieces. So that was the first thing, and that's what I'm going to help you with. So if you're trying to mimic or match this to the diagram, stop. It's not gonna work. You're gonna have to find the pieces as you go, all right? And that's what I'm gonna help you with, and I'm gonna show you how I did it. So now that we have our diagram up for our camera, let's go ahead and start. So the first thing I wanna do is I started with the lens cap. I start with all the big pieces and then I work my way into the little pieces because they're a little bit harder. I mean, they're a little bit easier to find, but the more room and the more space you get off of this card is gonna be better. So the first thing we're gonna do is that we have to peel off this entire thing and only expose the parts that we need for the camera, all right? So we're gonna peel off the vinyl and we're gonna expose the ones that we actually need. Now this is really important because you gotta make sure that you don't peel it really hard or really fast, and make sure you peel up something that you're actually gonna need for your camera, all right? So actually for this, the tools that you need for this, all right? I have an X-Acto knife, I have tweezers, and I have a hairdryer in order to give me a little heat in order to help me stretch and manipulate the vinyl like I need, all right? So these are the main three things that you need. As long as you have these things, you're good. All right, so first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take both of these and we're gonna peel up exactly, we're gonna peel up the excess vinyl and leave the other stuff exposed. Now, like I said, the best way to do this, and I'm gonna go ahead to the overhead camera, all right? And you guys, like I said, it's gonna be a thing. The best way I felt to do this is to grab the end of it that you don't need and peel it, keep it on the ground like this, keep it on top of the other ones, and peel it off just like this. See how I'm doing that? Just peel it off, kind of just like this. If you start peeling some stuff, don't worry about it. The key here is to not peel really hard, all right? Don't peel really hard. Do not peel hard, all right? You want to take your time and you want to let, see, there we go. You want to take your time. You want to make sure that you let the cutout do its job. Don't peel really, really fast. Take your time, peel off the excess, and then go to the next. So like again, they have enough space. They have enough space in between the actual pieces and the cutout to make sure that you don't peel it. So I really, really like that the way it did it. It's not too close together, but again, nothing is ever perfect. So again, still take your time peeling off this excess vinyl, all right? Let's go ahead and peel off the second excess vinyl, all right? So I wanna always start right here, like in the corner. I always start at like a corner, all right? Take your time, let me get this, and go ahead. Like I said, I push it, you see my finger down right here? All right, I go ahead and just peel off just like this. Let the vinyl do its job, let the peeling do its job. And don't get overzealous, okay? If you see things start to come up, don't worry about it. Just take your time and you'll see how it just flows and peels back. If you get to a point to where it's not peeling, like it's catching on something, lift your finger up like this and go ahead and just let it do its job. Again, you're trying to do it all at one time. Let it do its job. Do not rush it. All right, first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna go ahead and grab our big pieces. Now, for the next, all of this stuff, I'm gonna leave it on the sheet, all right? Just in case I need to come back. All right, here we go. So, first thing I wanna do, or I like to do, is that I am going to grab like I said, I start with all right, so like I said, I wanna start with the cap in the middle. So, I'm gonna go ahead and grab the cap. And like I said, the cap has that little notch in it. So you just want to line that notch up with the rest of it, just like so. All right, and then I'll just go all the way around. Make sure it's all lined up right on the edge. By the way, how you guys doing today? Y'all good? All right. And I lay it down right in the black, all right? In just case I need to tear it off, I will. All right, so next, that's that. All right, next I go ahead and take out the middle part using my tweezers. We'll use that. We gotta take my Sony sign out of there. All right. Now you got the little space for Sony and E-mount. All right. You're gonna line that up as best you can with the Sony sign and the E-mount. You're gonna drop that right on there, just like so. Bam. All right, you guys got that? Sony and the E-mount. Drop that on there like that. All right, next. We want to do all right, so the next thing is we're gonna go, I wanna get, so I already know this Sony sign right here, as you can see. I kind of know where that go. Now I wanna make sure that part is right. So if I go over here to the diagram, as you can see right here, that's A1. So this is gonna be A1. All right, so right here. So we're gonna go ahead and do this. All right, and let me see, let me get my tweezers. And like I said, I like using the X-Acto knife because I can really just get under this vinyl and pull it up. All right, and again, guys, when you pulling this stuff up, just make sure you're careful not to tear it. All right, no need to rush. All right, this just takes a little bit of time. All right, there we go. So when I put this piece on here, I like to line up the Sony part first and then lay the rest of it down. So the first thing I'm gonna do is line up the Sony part right here on the top. So line that up with the hole in here. Line that up with the Sony sign and then lay it down, all right? So that's what I'm gonna do first. You're gonna line up the Sony sign. Just like that, all right? I haven't even pushed it down yet. So line up the Sony sign first. And then we're gonna push it down. We're gonna pull it and manipulate it, make sure it lays down good. All right, and if you need to, use your tweezers to really get in those little cracks and crevices to make sure it's nice and laid down. All right, then once you got that laid down to where you need it, remember that little bridge right here on top? That little bridge, make sure you get that little bridge. All right, we're gonna lay that bridge down first. All right, lay that bridge down. Now the sides, you wanna line up these holes. Line up the holes right here with the speaker hole in the Sony camera, all right? If you can see that little speaker right there, make sure you line those up first, all right? So we're gonna do that for both sides. And then this little notch comes over the top, right here on the side. That little notch right there, you wanna lay that down. Make sure that's laid down, and if you need to, use your tweezers and lay that down right there, just like that. Very nice. All right, and you got that bridge up here again, right here on the edge. Make sure you get that bridge right there. Use your tweezers if you have to. Get that bridge just right there. All right, do the other side. Like I said, you got two on this side, so you want to make sure you so when you do this side, use your tweezers. You want to get it down in there because it's a little crack, a little crevice in there. Don't be afraid to push it around and manipulate it. But you want to make sure you get it over that speaker. Make sure you get it over the speaker. Good. Over the speaker first. Fix your bridge right here. That's what I be talking about when I say that bridge, that little lip right there. Get it over that little lip. Lay it down. Lay everything down. Get that, it's this little part right in here where the diopter is, the back of the diopter. Right here, right there, yeah, right in there. Make sure you get you can use your tweezers right there. Make sure you push that down. And then you want to get now this is the first step. Get your blow dryer. Get out. Use your blow dryer. Make sure you get out any holes and make sure everything is laid down. And we move on. Those are nice and on there. All right, we're gonna move on to the next part. Next, we want to get some big parts now. Like I told you before, we want to make sure we grab big parts. So go over here to our diagram. So what is our big part? So we got let's go A8. So as you can see right here, A8, and look at the diagram. A8 is this part. All right, this is A8 according to the diagram. So I need to find this part right here on here. All right. So if I look at my thing, A8. Now, as you can see on the diagram that they gave you, it said that A8, which is this part, is supposed to be under what was that? The one we just did. This part, which is A1. That's why I told you, you got to make sure you find the right pieces, because on the diagram that they send you, they say this part, this one, the one we're about to do, was supposed to be under the one that we just did. So it's not the same. Remember, I told you, you got to find these pieces. All right, so we're looking for A8, and like I said, that's gonna be that cutout one. All right, so let's make sure we get the right one. Let me see, A8 right here. All right, so it should be this one. Let me see here. All right, good. So this is gonna be our A8 right here. So we're gonna pull this one up. Make sure not to mess anything up. Now, as you can see, that's the one that has the Sony sign on it and a lot of different other pieces on here. All right, it's also connected to your this is a big piece, guys, because it's also connected to your battery compartment also. All right, so when you got this piece up, all right, you want to make sure you line up everything first. So the first thing I do is I line up the middle part. All right, you know this part right here where we take our lenses off? That's what we want to shoot for first. All right, so that's what we're going to shoot. So what I do is I turn it upside down like this, and I line up that little notch first. Don't worry about nothing else. Just make sure it doesn't stick to nothing else. But you want to make sure you line up that little notch first. Actually, let me turn it around just for camera purposes. So, and make sure they don't tap into each other. You're going to be fine. But like I said, line up the notch first and right under the lens cap. It's a good thing to use. Right up under the lens cap. Make sure it goes around, and bam. So once you have this bottom, let me make sure I'm doing my stuff right. Once you have this, get off of there. All right, so once you have this part on, then you can start manipulating. Now you see how this is over. See, I haven't laid it down yet because I need to make sure it gets really nice and close. So one area at a time. So lay it down first. All right, get this area over here. That's nice and lined up. Now make sure this goes around your sign, the A7S sign right here. So you want to make sure that block goes around there perfectly. All right, so we want to make sure we lay that down just like so. All right, and we're gonna just let it fall off to the side. Make sure you press down hard enough, get out any type of wrinkles, any bubbles. All right, so that was the top part. Now we're gonna do the other part. So if it laid down a little bit, it's okay, just pull it up. So now the next thing I do is I make sure it lays down under the 3/4 screw right there, you know, right under here. We want to lay it down under this 3/4 screw right here. All right, so got this. So now next is the tag right here, to make sure you don't cover up that tag. So these are all the most important things. We want to make sure that these things go around here perfectly, and then we can lay everything else down. So we got our 3/4 screw. We got our tag right here. Now you want to make sure that we go around the door. All right, go around the battery door like it's supposed to. Pull it up if you need to. Okay. All right, now we're gonna easy and make sure it's on the camera itself. Don't make sure you don't put it on the battery door because it's gonna be hard to open and close your battery if you don't do it right. All right. So push it down, line it up and push it down. All right, good, good, good. Then it's okay if it crinkles a little bit. Don't be scared. It's not gonna hurt. All right, but like I said, you can always pull it up and wrinkle it, manipulate it. All right, now we're gonna go right over here to the side of the camera. Don't be afraid of it. It's not gonna bite. All right, right here on the edge of the camera, right here, this is gonna roll back. They thought of pretty much everything. I love the way they did this. I love the cutout. All right, now we're gonna come over here, back over to the battery. Now, we wanna make sure that these two little circles go around your play button and your little trash can button right there, all right? All of these connect, all right? So we wanna make sure that we go here now. And you wanna make sure that because you wanna make sure you have enough room, because if you're not, that means you're gonna have to pull it up and redo it. All right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and jump in here for the duration of this installation, just so we can kind of speed things up. As I was doing the video, I noticed it was going pretty long, so we're going to hit all the important things and we're going to go ahead and finish the video. So right now we should be finishing up installing our A8 piece. Just make sure you get it nice and tight around your play button and around your trash button there, and then also make sure everything is nice and snug around your battery door. Make sure you get all the little lips. Make sure the skin goes over the edge of the camera, because it does fold up just a little bit to make sure you get that protection. Also make sure it goes around the down side of your LCD. And then once you got that on there, make sure you go ahead and put a little heat to it so you can smooth out any other bubbles, any other wrinkles, anything that may cause any kind of defectiveness or deficiencies in it. You want to just make sure it's nice and tight around there. Okay, so for our next part, we're going to go ahead and work on the handle. Now, like I told you before, we want to make sure we get big pieces out the way. So we want to work on B4. All right, that's where your handle is, that's where your grip is at. So we want to go ahead and pull up the part for our grip next. All right, so as we take out our piece for B4 now, this little notch right here is what we want to focus on lining up. Now this is a little notch that goes like under the little IR sensor on your camera right there on your battery grip. So we want to make sure we line up the piece with that first. So I always like to use different areas of the camera in order to line up first and then make everything else around that part. So we're going to use that little notch first, and then we're going to go around that little part, and then we're going to lay everything else down on the handle. The other part about this is that you also have the part right under like your front notch there, your front knob there, that we also want to make sure we go around. So you want to make sure it goes right under there. Make sure you don't cover up the little notch right there, and that you don't impede your touch right there in order if you're going to turn the wheel or anything like that. So just make sure everything lines up perfectly. Make sure you keep everything on the camera, and then you won't have any issues. Lay everything down flat, and then once you get everything down flat to where it's supposed to go, add a little bit of heat. Try to manipulate it just a little bit more to make sure it nice and stretches over the other pieces, and make sure everything connects and you won't have an issue. But like I said, make sure it goes around everything. Make sure you don't cover up the IR sensor, and also make sure you're still able to freely turn your knob right there, the little notch right there on the front, whether you use it for your shutter speed or your aperture. Just make sure it can turn freely so you guys don't have any issues. And as we are continuing to lay down this piece of the skin, also another good point to make is that the NFC, the little square, you want to make sure you go completely over the NFC. You don't want to restrict it from not being able to use its potential to what it's supposed to do. So make sure everything goes down, make sure it's flat, and if you need to pull it a little bit more or manipulate it, that's fine. Don't be scared to pull it over a little bit more so everything lines up. All right, and once we're done with that, we're just going to apply a little bit of heat to everything. Make sure we get any kind of bubbles, any kind of wrinkles, and we're going to move on to the next step. All right, the next piece we're going to work on is A12. All right, this is going to be your LCD. All right, so we're going to go ahead and wrap the back of the LCD. It has a few notches in here, and I'll talk you through it. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start with this LCD. Now, I did find, after trial and error and trying to put this in many different ways on this LCD, I found that starting from the top of the LCD actually worked out better because I was able to line up the little square at the top, and then everything else just folds down and falls in place. So once you got a starting point and once you got a potential area where you can start at, everything else falls in line. So I found that putting it up here first worked out better. Once you actually have that part on, you can go ahead and lay down everything else. So once I laid down the top part, I went to the back, and I'm going to go ahead and just smooth out the back of the LCD. Once I smooth out the back of the LCD, we just wrap around all the other parts, and the LCD skin is installed. Guys, now once we got everything installed on our LCD, we're going to take our heat gun or hair dryer, and we're just going to heat it up. Again, make sure you smooth out any kind of crinkles, make sure we get out any kind of bubbles. If you have a squeegee, you can also do that too, but I really didn't need it. The material stretches really nice, so I was able to just firmly take a finger and smooth out any type of bubbles, any type of resistance in the material, and I didn't have any issues. So go ahead and heat it up for a few seconds. Make sure everything comes nice and tight. And again, we're using heat because heat allows that material to really shrink and really adhere to the camera in the body with no issues. So make sure you have everything on there really nice and tight. Okay guys, next we're going to install B2. All right, B2 is going to be our SD card door. So we're going to go ahead and take that off and install that really quickly. B2. Now, as I said before, and I'm going to keep saying it, it's always good to find a starting point in all of these pieces. You find a good starting point, you won't have any issues. So the starting point I use, of course, is going to be the actual latch on the door. And that is because you want to make sure that you don't stop or block that latch from opening anytime, okay? You want to make sure you can still put the skin on, but still be able to move it freely up and down so you can open your SD card with no issues. So the first thing I wanted to make sure is that I can put it on there and get the skin around the SD card door latch. And then once I have it around the latch good, and once everything is installed, then I can continue to start laying the rest of the skin down and stretching it and manipulating it so that everything else works out perfectly. Also, you want to make sure that you keep it on the door, okay, because you don't want the skin to go over to the other side of the camera and then you won't be able to open the door. All right, sometimes if you're doing that, once you get it actually down, you can open the SD card door and then make sure it's on. Once I have everything down, add a little heat, make sure you stretch and manipulate it how you need it, and go from there. Okay, the next piece we're going to install is our battery door. All right, and as you can see from the diagram, our battery door is A10. You can find it right over there in your decals. It definitely looks like a battery door, so it shouldn't really be hard to find. So let's go ahead and install it. Alright, so once we got our battery door decal up off the paper, we're going to go ahead and install this. Now, this is not a really hard job here, but there are some caveats here that you need to make sure. So you want to make sure that the decal is installed right on the battery. Alright, remember, you always need a starting place. My starting place for the battery door was the middle latch. Again, you want to make sure that you do not cover up the latch. and have a potential problem when you open up the battery and drop it out. You want to make sure again that it is able to move freely and that you have all full range of motion when you're opening and closing the door. All right, so first thing is make sure it goes around the battery latch perfectly. Make sure if you need to stretch it or manipulate it so you don't have any issues, make sure you want to do that. You can try to do it, put it on there, open it up a few times, make sure there's no issues like I just did, and you should be good to go. Again, also you want to make sure that it doesn't run over to the edges of the camera. All right, so when you do hit the latch, it still should pop open with no issues. Once you get that battery door on there, apply a little heat, make sure you stretch it and manipulate it how you need to, and move on to the next step. Alright, for our next part, we're going to finish up the little piece on the front where the sensor is. That's going to be B3. Alright, B3 is right there on the grip, the part that we haven't finished yet. So we're going to go ahead and put that part on there. Now, on here, it does have two of them. Again, I really don't know why there is two of them. Maybe they gave me two because they feel like that might be something that either falls off or a lot of people mess up trying to stretch it and manipulate it. Maybe they tear it, but you do have two of them. Maybe I'm missing something, but I only needed one. So I like the one that had more of the graffiti on it, so that's why I chose that one. So again, we're going to install this one, B3. Alright, and like I told you before, every piece needs a starting point. Alright, my starting point on this piece was the sensor. So the first thing you want to do is put it over the sensor. Make sure you lay it down nice. Make sure you stretch it if you need to. Do not cover it up. Once you have it on or over the sensor properly, make sure everything stretches out. Make sure everything lays down properly. Remember, it is a grip. It does have a different type of roughness and material, so you want to make sure you lay it down flat and nice. Once you do that, make sure you apply the heat, make sure it's stretched like it's supposed to, and move on to the next step. Okay, for this next part, we're going to install the thumb palm piece right here on the edge. Now, I did find an issue with this, so hopefully Camskins sees this and maybe they can get this to their quality assurance. But the piece for that little thumb area where it's black is B1. There is no B1 on the actual camera diagram. As you look over at the blue part where the camera is, there is no B1. So I was trying to figure out, for somebody installing this for the first time, we're looking for the numbers on the camera and we're looking at the diagram to figure out which part is it. There is no B1. There's a B2 right there, but there is no B1. So the piece for that little thumb part is B1, just so you guys know. Now, there might be a situation where Camskins figured that since B2 and B1 are close together on the actual paper, on the decals, maybe they felt like people should just know that these go together. Also, there could also be a situation where people might not want to put this piece on there, so they didn't actually put the number next to it on the actual diagram because that is a more rough area for a little bit better grip. Maybe they felt like people's hands or fingers might slip if you put it on there, but again, it might be an optional piece, but again, it's not on there, so that's just something to keep in mind. But again, we want to put it on there, we're going to line it up, apply a little heat, and that piece is really simple. Okay, the next piece we're going to apply on here is A18. Now, this is the piece that's going to go around like your function button and your joystick. All right, so we're going to go ahead and add that little piece to the mix now.
Man, 'cause we got the fresh.
All right, a good rule of thumb to keep with this piece. It does have a slit in it that allows it to go around the joystick freely. Of course, the circle is closed around the function button, and then the bottom part is open around the dial. So what I did here, again, I start with what's going to be the most beneficial, which is a function button. All right, because you have to make sure if you press that function button, you're able to freely press it down and it retract and come back to you without it being stuck on the decal itself. Another good thing also, here you want to open up your LCD because it does overlay on to go to the inside of the camera a little bit. So make sure you open up your LCD and then you're able to push everything down. So again, get it around the function button, everything else is open, and then go ahead and apply a little bit of heat. Make sure you stretch it out, flatten it out, get any kind of bubbles, any type of restriction out of it, and then you're good to go to move to the next piece. Okay, so here's the stage that we're at right now. So if you go ahead and look at everything, everything should be lined up nicely. Everything should have a nice fit to it. Everything should just be perfectly, have a nice little seal to it. You might have a little few wrinkles in there. It's okay. Later on, you can go back and apply a little bit of heat, but for the most part, you just want to make sure everything is lined up. Okay, moving on to the next pieces. Now this is going to be kind of a combo of pieces. We're going to go ahead and knock out A17 and A16. Now A17 is considered 3 different pieces, which is your headphone jack, microphone jack, and your door for your USB-C. A16 is the other 2 for your HDMI and your speaker. This is pretty simple. You're basically just taking the pieces and laying them on the doors, but again, they do have these little small notches in each one, so you don't want to just throw them on there. You want to make sure that they line up with the doors properly also. Alright, and once we have all of our door decals on, just make sure you go ahead and add a little heat to it. Go ahead and seal the deal. Make sure we adhere the tape to the camera, and make sure everything is on there good, tight, nice and snug. Make sure if you need to stretch or manipulate anything, go ahead and knock that out now. It's the best time to actually do it is when you actually put it on, and then the tape can go ahead and set on the camera. I also made sure that I use my X-Acto knife. You might need to use this and get down into like the little crevices to make sure everything just sits on there nice, smooth. Open up the doors also so you can make sure that they all open up freely and close freely without any type of distraction. Alright, so moving on to the next piece, we're going to go grab A11. Alright, A11 is going to be where your C3 button and your menu button is. Is also going to run around the bottom of the eye cup also. So we're going to grab that piece and go ahead and knock that out. Now, as you can see me pulling this off of the paper, A11 is much longer than what the diagram says. So again, that little skinny narrow piece is what actually runs along the bottom of the eye cup. But if you're looking for a piece for it to be short like it says in the diagram, it's not that much. It's not short. It's the big C3 and the menu button and all of that over there, but it's also a piece that runs along the bottom of the eye cup, so it is definitely longer than what the diagram says. That's just a note just to keep in if you're looking for this piece and you can't find it. So what we're going to go ahead and do, again, we need to find a place to start. The most important parts is, to me, is the actual buttons on the camera. So I want to make sure that my C3 button, my custom button, and my menu button both move freely if I'm pushing them. That's really important when you're dealing with decals. A lot of times if you push those buttons down, they get stuck because of the stickiness with the decal running up against it, and that's not what you want. So again, our starting place, go ahead and sit the decal on top of the C3 and the menu button. Make sure that that decal gets over into the camera and not restrict those buttons from being pushed. Once those are down, we want to go ahead and run the long piece along the bottom of the eye cup. Make sure that gets on there freely. Make sure that sticks on there. Use your tweezers if you have to press it down before we actually apply heat, and then pull that on around. And then once we get that part down on the other on the bottom of the eye cup, we'll go ahead and fix the other side of the camera. The other side, basically the only thing that we're doing is just wrapping it around, and then we're going to go ahead and apply heat to it. Again, make sure when you pull it around that you're not putting it on the doors. don't pull it so much and don't manipulate the stickiness and the decal so much that you run it over the doors of your headphone jack and your microphone jack over there. If you feel like you have excess material, go ahead and use your X-Acto knife and go ahead and cut it and then reheat it to make sure you get a nice little seal. You can do that. You can also open up your headphone jack and your mic jack. Also open up those doors and actually run the tape inside of it. That way it can open and close, and then apply heat to it so it can shrink and adhere to the camera properly. Now, the other little caveat to this piece is the A7S3 logo that sits right on the top of the camera. Now, this piece also has a little square on it that goes over the A7S3. So you want to make sure when you wrap this that you actually have enough that you pull up above the camera to make sure that it wraps and sits over the A7S3 logo properly. All right, if you don't, pull it off and go ahead and manipulate it a little bit, stretch it a little bit to make sure that it wraps properly. And then once you have it down, I use the bottom or the flat side of the tweezers and go ahead and apply a little bit of pressure to push it down. Make sure everything is in there, make sure everything sits properly. And then once I have everything in the places that I need it, where I can't use my fingers, I'll go ahead and apply heat to it, shrink it, and make sure it sticks to the camera properly. Alright, next piece we're going to work with is the Sony Alpha logo. Alright, and I think that piece is A2. That's the piece that will wrap over the top of the camera, on the side of the camera also. And we want to wrap our Sony Alpha logo along with the logo, the little circle logo that's on the top. So for that, we need to go ahead and grab A2. And we're going to go ahead and seat this one on the camera now. Alright, so we want to go ahead and wrap this piece. So again, just like anything else, we want to start with a point. Alright, you have the little icon up at the top, but you also have the Sony Alpha logo that's superimposed on the front of the camera. So I thought that will really be a good starting point for this piece. Alright, so understand with this piece, there's a little notch that goes up under the eye cup part in the front, but then you also have the Sony Alpha logo. So that's where I started it. I wanted to make sure that the Sony Alpha logo was exposed properly, that the tape was not covering it, and I figured that's a good starting point, because once that's flush and once that's perfect, then I can go ahead and lay everything else down, get everything else tight, and we should have a good starting point here. So starting point for this one, I'll start with the Sony Alpha logo. Once that's on and done, I'll go ahead and wrap the side of the camera. Make sure that's all pulled over to the side, and then once that's on, the decals is cut good enough. It has like a little slit in it, so you can make sure it's pulled up properly. So once that front side is done, we'll go ahead and get the logos on the top, the little circle with the little line through it. We want to make sure that's exposed properly. And then the piece of tape that we have, the decal that we have, goes over the back also. There's like a little notch on the back of the on the top of the camera that goes right over the back of it. So we want to make sure that little slit back there is also nice and tidy also. Once you have the front Sony Alpha logo, the logo on the top, and you have the back wrap, then you can go ahead around to the left side of the camera and make sure we get it over the little notch or the little handle that comes with the camera. Now, for those of you that still has this thing on the side of your camera that we never pull off, the tape or the decal is designed for it to go over that part without the little triangle part on it. Me personally, I really didn't care about it, so I went ahead and took my X-Acto knife. I cut it and made a slit through the middle of it, and then I went ahead and wrapped it under that little notch right there and then put it together. So that's the way that I did it. It really didn't make a big difference to me. I really didn't worry about it. But if you do have that on the side of your camera, the way I did it, just make a little slit and then just bring it down and put them together and then apply heat, and you should be good to go. Alright guys, so this next piece we're looking for is going to be the piece that goes around like the AEL, the AF on, the C1 button. You know, those buttons right on the back of there. Now, when you look at the actual picture, it says A19, A20, A21, A25. And if you look over at the diagram, it seems like the pieces are all like individual pieces, but they're actually not. On the paper or on the decal stickers that they send you, it's all actually one piece. Like, again, this is something that I definitely think Camskins QA should definitely take a look at, to make sure everything is matching up, especially for people who are doing this for the first time. But these are not individual pieces. This is one big piece. So at this point in time, which is also good the way we're doing this, is that you don't have too many other pieces that has like 3 cutout circles on it, so you can actually gauge it and see which one is which. So this is the part that we're doing right now. Now, like I've said before many times in this video, you always want to find a good place to start at. So back on this back of the camera, the AF on button is kind of like the biggest button back there, besides your dial. So that's kind of where I started this process. So I wanted to, again, go around the AF on button, make sure the decal was flushed and hitting the actual camera, not laying on top of the AF on button, making sure if I press that AF on button that it still moves freely and moves nice. Once I finished with the AF on button, I went ahead and put it around the C1 button, my custom C1 button, and then the piece actually goes down a little bit under the eye cup. So for that, you definitely want to lift up your LCD and make sure it sits nice and snug under there. Use your tweezers, push it down if you need to. If you need to get in those little cracks and crevices, you can also use your X-Acto knife to push it down. Once you have that side down over there and everything is nice and flush, then you want to go ahead and continue with the opposite side. On the side that has the EAL button, there's also a little cutout for the little symbol on the top right side of the EAL button, like the little checkerboard. So you want to make sure that the decal is not covering that up either. They did a really good job with their, QA and cutting this out. And I also forgot to mention, there's a little magnifying glass right there, right by the AF on button. You want to go ahead and there's a little circle for that also. So make sure that your decal fits around that magnifying glass, to zoom in. That zoom in button when you're looking at your images, that icon right there that I'm referring to. And then, like I said, once you finish that, go around your AEL button. Again, make sure the decal sits nice and flush on the actual camera. Press the button down a few times. Make sure when you press it down that the decal is not restricting you from pushing it down. The decal also goes up between your 2 mode dials on the top also. So for that, I just use my X-Acto knife and my tweezers to press that little piece down right between the decals. It fits in there nice and snug. And then also you're going to continue to go up and around those dials up there also. The decal goes up there also, so make sure it's wrapping around everything nice and snug. And then once you get that down, you want to go ahead and use your heat. Make sure you go ahead and shrink everything down and make sure that everything fits nice on the camera. For this next piece, I'm not going to go through the diagram and everything, but it's just the little horseshoe that goes right there on the top of your hot shoe. So you can just take that off. You can see it right there on the decal sticker. You can just take that hot shoe off and mount it right on the top of there. Again, make sure it sits on there properly. Make sure you use your heat to shrink it down, and make sure it's not interfering with any type of lights or any other devices that you're going to put in that hot shoe mount. All right, for the next piece, we're going to go ahead and knock out the top of the eyepiece. All right, the top of the eyepiece is numbered A3. All right, it's just a little piece that wraps around the top of the piece and wraps around the top of the horseshoe, which is where your hot shoe mount is. Okay, so that's the piece we're going to knock out now. Okay, so with this piece, guys, you just want to make sure, again, you want a starting point. So my starting point with this was kind of obvious. It's going to be right around that little horseshoe mount, right on top of the eye cup. So once I have that nice and flat, make sure that little cutout right there that goes around the hot shoe, I wanted to make sure that was perfect first, and then I just lay each side down. Now, one thing to note, that right side does go over your diopter, the housing for it. So you want to make sure that that little rounded part goes over the diopter perfectly, so it doesn't bulge out. And then the left side, it does have an indent on the left side of the eye cup, so you want to make sure that that is nice and flush with that too. You use your thumb and apply a little pressure to put it on the inside of that, and that should cover that. Now there is a little piece that does wrap around the bottom of the eye cup, so you want to make sure that it fits up in those little corners really nice and tight. And if you need to cut off any excess, or if you need to shrink it or do anything else, just go ahead and cut that off. But just in case you pull it too much, you might have a little excess material. Don't be afraid to cut that off and make sure it flushes nice and good. But like I said, it does wrap around the bottom, so once you apply it and put it to where you need it, go ahead and apply a little heat and just manipulate it as you see fit and get it nice and snug, and move to the next piece. Alright, again, I did say I'm going to cover every little piece. Now there's another small little horseshoe that sits right up under the eye cup. I do believe this is number 23 on your diagram. So again, really easy to gauge. Just check it out on your decal sheet and just apply it and put it on there how it needs to be. Make sure it's nice and snug and fit, and just move on to the next piece. Alright guys, now I just want to say, if you guys made it this far and this has been very helpful, just remember to comment, like, and subscribe. Make sure you hit that bell for notifications and follow me. Hopefully this helps somebody. And we're going to move on to our last few pieces, guys. We're almost done. So we are going to move on to the top of the camera. So the one that we're going to do now is called A4. Now A4 is the one that has like your big dials, your small buttons on there. It's kind of a combination of a few things, so we're going to go ahead and work this one next. Now, one thing to keep in mind with this piece is, even though the diagram shows you that it's a smaller piece, it is actually connected to a long piece that goes on the side of the camera and wraps around. So again, this is something that I think Camskins definitely should check out and make sure that matches for first time users. So anyway, with every other piece, like I said before, we're going to go ahead and get a starting point. So my starting point with this is going to be like the manual dial first. The manual dial with all your manual and shutter and aperture priorities and things like that. So I went ahead and started on that side just to get the decal wrapped around that one first. And then once I got it around there, I went ahead and I'm going to start going around all of my dials, going around my C2 button, my custom C2 button, also going around my record button, making sure, again, like any other button, making sure that they are being depressed. Okay, make sure they still have full range of motion, so if you press it, it doesn't get stuck. And then also you want to make sure that the decal goes around your exposure dial and your other dial. There's also a little piece that goes in between the dials, so you want to make sure that those things come through nice and clean. This is a good rule of thumb and a good reason to have tweezers, because you can pull it through, you can manipulate it, stretch it, and make sure everything it fits nice and snug. You can also use your tweezers to get into those little cracks and crevices, make sure everything is pressed down nice and neat. And then also after that, you can use your heat gun to go ahead and heat everything up, stretch it, manipulate it, make sure it's adhering to the camera properly, and just making sure everything fits as it should. Now, one other good thing to note is that this piece does actually come over the front sensor that sits right on the front of the camera, right, below the dial there. You want to make sure that the decal is not covering up that flash sensor and everything right there also. So make sure everything fits nice and snug, but all your open parts and components that need to be open are open. Now, just like the other side of the camera, it also has the little thing that goes around the notch on the side of the camera, so you want to make sure that that goes around the camera properly. Also, this piece also does go around that front dial also. You want to make sure you keep the decal on the camera, all right, not on the actual components themselves, like the dials, the buttons. Make sure you keep it on the camera itself, and make sure you heat it to the actual skin of the camera. We at the end. Let's finish it out. I got 6% left. All right, the next piece we're gonna do is we're gonna work with the front of the camera now. I think this is really the last part up there. The one that we are looking for is A5, and you can see it right here on the diagram. A5 is the one that has your on-off switch right there. So we're gonna go ahead and add this to the mix. All right, so going back to our starting point. So for this piece, of course, you probably already guessed it, but my starting point was the on-off letters that are on the camera. You want to make sure that those are properly exposed. Make sure you can still see them. So I went ahead and started right there. So I wanted to make sure first that the on-off was visible. And once I got that down, I went ahead and just wrapped everything else around the camera. Pretty easy. But again, my starting point for this was that on-off switch. And then when you wrap it around, you just want to make sure it goes flush with the rest of the material that's already on the camera. And then if you need to, use your tweezers to move, manipulate, get in those little cracks and crevices, and then use your heat to heat it up, shrink it, and make sure you get a good seal. All right, guys, and that's going to do it for the complete installation of the skin from Camskins on our A7S III. I hope this was really helpful to some people. Like I said, I did it before. I went ahead and bit the bullet, and I did all the trial and error to it, and I wanted to make sure that anybody else who had any type of issues or problems, and it was kind of confusing, that this really helped somebody. So thank you for checking it out. And again, make sure you guys comment, make sure you guys like, and make sure you guys are following me. If you have any issues, let me know. There are other little things on this sheet, like little covers that you can put on buttons. I was just actually playing around and just putting some things just to make it a little bit more cooler. But other than that, man, we are done. And I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next video. Peace out.